Hi, I'm Roger Mashad. At Franklin Templeton Investments, we believe that citizens need to be informed about the resources that can help make higher education more affordable. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, Guarini Institute for Government and Leadership at St. Peter's University, NJM Insurance Group, Fedway Associates, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, Wells Fargo, and by NJ Best, New Jersey's 529 College Savings Plan. Turn a dream into a degree. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com. And by Meadowlands Regional Chamber, building essential connections that drive business growth.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We are coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in Newark. It is my pleasure to welcome back once again Michael Maron, President and CEO of Holy Name Medical Center. Good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So much going on. Real quick, I know that CMS is a federal, is it an agency?
Yeah, Medicare and Medicaid. Right, so CMS is the division that oversees Medicare and Medicaid programs.
Right. The reason I mention it is because they award from, I guess it's 1 to 5 stars, based on a whole range of variables. And you guys your organization received a 5-star rating from the Center of Medicare and Medicaid, CMS, the federal government, because?
Because of quality performance. It's basic objective metrics that CMS draws from every hospital across the country that participates in Medicare, which is all of us. And they use the same objective criteria to compare all the hospitals across the board. 5 stars are rare. It's their highest rating.
How many in the region?
Only 5 in the whole New York metropolitan region, only 3 in New Jersey. So it's Holy Name, Morristown, and St. Luke's in Warren. Those are the only 3.
So listen, by the way, let me disclose that for many, many years, Holy Name has been a supporter of our programming, and I've hosted the annual gala that in New York, by the way, that Holy Name holds. Question on the national landscape. Relatively new president. Really, 2nd year now.
Yeah.
New governor in New Jersey, several months in.
Right.
Biggest challenges you and your colleagues in the healthcare/hospital world face on the national and state level are?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the crushing cost that has not depleted at all. I'm concerned about it because there are a lot of fighting constituencies who want to see, the system sort of stay the way it is. They profit under it.
But what does that have to do with the challenges?
Well, because the challenges are you don't want to deliver high-end quality at any price. And you got to get the cost under control. And at the same time, you don't want quality to suffer and be sacrificed in the interests of lowering costs.
What I'm curious about is this. To what degree, Mike, do you believe that those in public life, in Congress and the state legislature, governors, presidents, et cetera, either have an understanding of the impact of policy decisions, and B, even want to have that understanding? Loaded question, I know. A
loaded question. Well, it is very complex. So I think very few people have a comprehensive understanding of the entirety of the system. Because when people say healthcare reform, that embodies a whole lot of different industries. It's not just hospitals and doctors. It's insurance companies. It's pharma. It's suppliers. It's never ending. It is a big, big entity. With many, many sub-entities that are very large in the economic sector.
So when you see it, dare I say, politicized by some saying, let's do away with Obamacare, it's destroyed people's lives, and others have said Obamacare was the answer to all of our problems, you sit there and go?
No, I said, like anything else, there are benefits to it and there are detriments to it because no one has thought it out fully and comprehensively. So there was value. There were some good components to the Affordable Care Act and individual mandates, access, ensuring people who didn't otherwise have access to it. And there were other mandates that weren't so good. Just throwing one out without the other isn't the way to sort of fix this.
Mike, we've talked about diversity before. And what I'm struck by is the population you serve is very diverse, but there's also a large Korean population. We've talked about this before.
That's right.
How are you serving that community in terms of healthcare? And is it any different than you would serve how would you serve anyone else?
What we've learned through this is that when you really adopt, not for a public relations perspective, but for a true delivery of care, a culturally sensitive approach. So I get to know you. It's one of the detriments of the current system. The economics do not pay me as a physician or a provider to invest time to really get to know you.
Why does that, hold on, respectfully, devil's advocate, why do you need to why does a physician, a nurse, doctor, why do they need to get to know who I am, where I'm from, my culture, in terms of treating me?
Because you are unique. There is only one Steve Adubato in this world with your DNA, your genetic makeup, and your disposition as to how things are going to work. And as much as we try to get cookbook medicine and we try to standardize things, there is value to that, but to a point. At the end of the day, you are still a unique individual. And if I'm going to deliver the most effective care to you, I got to understand those nuances, right?
And so you're saying, is it different the way you would treat someone who happens to be Korean, who has a different diet and history?
So what you do is you bring in the understanding to the Korean culture, and the Korean dynamic is to, am I going to be compliant with my meds? What's my understanding as to who pays for this? What's my understanding as to, should I be responsive to the doctor, or should I go for some other homeopathic therapy and avoid the prescriptions that you gave me? What are my superstitions that impact me from following up or providing care, or intimidate me from providing care?
Cultural awareness.
Sure. It's very important. It's critical. And what you find is you can communicate and you can execute much more efficiently when you have that sensitivity.
You know, it's interesting. Cultural awareness is also relevant when it comes to end-of-life issues. We've done a lot of programming on end-of-life issues. A priority for you and your colleagues. How so?
Well, when you look at the cost of healthcare, and you look at New Jersey particularly, we rank dead last according to the Dartmouth Atlas when it comes to end-of-life care in this country, right? So the chances of you being in an ICU, racking up ridiculous amounts of bills, futile bills, in the last 6 months of life are greater in New Jersey than any other state in the nation. That's a tragedy, right? And it's a multifaceted tragedy. It's not just a function of the healthcare system. It's a function of the culture of society as a whole, but it's a function of the medical community and what we do, and the economics. So we opened an experiment up in Saddle River. It's a 20-bed inpatient hospice dedicated only to adding quality of life to the last days of life. And clinically, it is by far the most successful program I've ever launched. Financially, it's a challenge because the system doesn't recognize it. I use this all the time up there from a cultural sensitivity, and we've seen this all the time. I get a 95-year-old priest who has no siblings, no family. He's all alone. He comes to the villa in his last days, Villa Marie Claire, right, which is our inpatient hospice, right, to spend out his last days of life with us. We care for him. We comfort him. We make sure his transition is as peaceful as it possibly can be. Contrast that to the 38-year-old mother of 4 who has a husband, 5 brothers and sisters, parents are still alive, active in her community. She comes into the villa, for her last days of life. What do? You got to support that entire community that's around that individual, right? We get paid the same.
Mike Maron, one of the many CEOs in this state and region, hospital CEOs that are dealing with a whole range of challenges. Mike did not talk about this. We didn't have time, but next time he'll come back and talk about the work that his organization is doing with others in Haiti, which has been going on for how many years?
Haiti, Holy Name's involvement has been 8 years. I'm actually flying there tomorrow if I can get out.
I feel like every day, we're right before a storm. By the way, every time I talk to Mike, he's either going or coming back from Haiti, and we'll talk about that next time. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Okay.
State of Affairs will be right back right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
State Senator Vin Gopal represents the 11th Legislative District, all in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and we thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on joining the upper house in the state legislature. Real quick, let's jump into issues. You have been very outspoken on the issue of the $15 an hour minimum wage. As we speak, it's not a reality. You believe we need some exemptions in it. And is that also because you're a business person?
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I started my business over 10 years ago, if I had
What kind of business?
I have a marketing company, and we had 2 retail stores. And if we had a $15 minimum wage as a business owner, I put money into my business every year, we wouldn't have survived. Today, I have 14 employees. They all have good benefits, good health care. So I just don't like treating a corporation that's making record profits the same as a coffee shop or ice cream parlor. It's in Asbury Park or Red.
You sound like a Republican. You're a Democrat.
I'm a Democrat. And there's a lot of Democrats that feel this way.
You do think that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. This led by the Senate President. Steve Sweeney feels that way, absolutely. I know he wants to see exemptions.
So the governor wants to see that $15 an hour minimum wage. You think it's going to be challenging to happen?
Yeah, and I think the governor even recently has said that we should potentially have some exemptions. So I think we got to look at that. We don't want anyone to go out of business.
Senator, clearly not. You have talked a lot about climate change.
Yep.
Very real.
Yeah.
Very important, particularly in the district you represent. Talk about it.
Well, you know, this has been bipartisan against offshore drilling from the federal government. We've seen it all over the country, what's happened in the Gulf and other places. And we're surrounded right on the Atlantic Ocean, Long Branch, Asbury Park, huge economy, huge tourism. If one bad accident happens, we're in trouble.
The governor, even though he has, as we do this program, the budget his budget address will be critical. It's clear that he supports the millionaire's tax, increasing taxes on those who earn $1 million or more. You say?
I don't want to see tax increases right now. I think we got to look. It's got to be the last resort. Something I talked about the entire campaign was New Jersey's addiction to government. 565 towns, 600 school districts, hundreds of authorities and agencies, losing over $1 billion a year on not passing a cap on unused sick time. That should be a $15,000.
This means somebody retires after 25 years, 30 years, they've unused sick time. What's wrong with that? It's the law.
And that's fine, and I don't want to hurt people that have been playing by the rules, but for new people, it should be capped at a certain amount, and everybody should know the rules moving forward. But when we have, you know, some public employees cashing out $600,000, $700,000, that hurts every taxpayer in the state.
You've talked a lot. You mentioned the number of municipalities, the number of school districts, and you said, you know what? Why are we not having an honest, real, and critically important discussion about regionalization? Let's be specific. Do you believe that the state of New Jersey should mandate that very small communities? I happen to live in a town of Montclair. The next town over is Glen Ridge. Let's just say Glen Ridge is a pretty small town.
Sure. Should
the state of New Jersey senators say, you know what? Glen Ridge, you shouldn't have your own superintendent of schools. You shouldn't have your own police department. You must merge with either Montclair or Bloomfield, another community around that it's 40,000 population as opposed to a lot less than that. Is that the role of the state to mandate that?
I think the state should provide incentives. They should encourage it. They should promote good government and good tax dollars. Now, you're talking about 2 towns that happen to be much larger. We have over 100 towns in New Jersey that don't even hit populations of 2,000 people. I've got...
You mean smaller than Glen Ridge?
Oh, I've got towns in my district like Lock Arbor, population 140 people.
What's it called?
Lock Arbor.
Doesn't have its own mayor.
It has its own mayor and own governing body. I've got Allenhurst, Interlake, and you put all 3 of those towns together, you don't even hit 1,000 people. They all have their own governments. They all have their own local governing bodies.
And what impact does it have on property taxes?
It impacts everybody. Everyone's paying for it. I mean, you're talking about average 22,000 when you have all that municipal government. They're not even sharing services on a healthcare contract, waste management contracts. I've got school districts in my area, like Lake Como, that has a superintendent consultants, and they have 0 schools in their district.
0 schools?
And they have an elected school board.
So wait, when you go out there, Senator, and you say, hold on, let's have an honest conversation about why your property taxes are as high as they are. The federal government's only allowing you to deduct 10 grand, not a penny more, right, from your state and local taxes. We need to merge. We need to consolidate. You can't do this any longer. What do you get back?
People want to see it. Where 10, 15 years ago,
people want to see it?
People are tired of New Jersey's addiction to government, and we have authorities and agencies. Recently, we saw Jersey City merge their parking authority and their police department. They saved over $5 million on their budget. We can keep the same great quality of services that New Jersey has, but cut that fat out of the top.
So you're saying that we don't even necessarily have to do away with a town in some cases, but at least merge services.
Here's a minimum concept. A school district should have at least a high school.
Or it should
size
be a
school.
school district.
Yeah, to be a school district. So when you have just a K-8 and they have a superintendent, 3 assistant superintendents, curriculum director, insurance broker, engineer, attorney, at what point is enough is enough?
But what I'm struck by is you're saying that what you're getting back is a positive reaction.
Very positive.
But Senator, I've heard from all kinds of legislators and others, the late Alan Karchu, who was the Speaker of the House many years ago before you could actually vote. I was in the legislature with him, and I remember him writing a book called Municipal Madness, and the whole argument was, this is insanity. That was in the 1980s and early 90s.
A different time, and I think people are sick and tired
You
now.
think people are ready to say, I'm ready to merge, I'm ready to not, I don't have to have my home rule?
I think people are ready. And
Really?
I'll tell you, Governor Murphy won my district by 1,800. I won by 4,200 because I was on a message that talked about consolidation. That's all I've been talking about. And at minimum, let's have the conversation. Let's talk about it.
Put it on the table.
Do we need 565 towns? Do we need 600 school districts? Do we need hundreds of housing authorities, sewer authorities? What services can we share?
Real quick, one more thing on offshore drilling. Why is this such a bad idea?
I mean, it can destroy our economy. I mean, we rely heavily on the Atlantic Ocean. It's terrible for the environment. It can hurt our marine life. It just can do, collateral damage in a lot of ways. And so I think everybody, Republicans and Democrats, are against this in New Jersey.
What services do you, what committees do you serve on in the Senate?
I serve as vice chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, as a member of Economic Growth, and a member of Health.
Transportation. Are we doing what we need to do with the money from the gas tax?
So far, the first round is, yeah, and it's interesting watching some of these folks that were very against it, understandably, frustrated that their tax dollars are not being used the right way. But so far, I'm seeing a lot of the projects, the first round that come out, are on some
They
roadways.
want their project on the list, don't they?
We're talking about roadways that haven't been done in 30, 40 years that need to be done.
We thank you for joining us on State of Affairs. Do not let it be the last time. State Senator Vin Gopal, who represents the 11th Legislative District in beautiful Monmouth County, New Jersey. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for having me.
All the best.
Appreciate it.
This is State of Affairs. We're at NJTV. We'll be right back.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We're pleased to welcome back Ed Richardson, Executive Director, New Jersey Education Association, otherwise known as the NJEA, to disclose a longtime supporter of New Jersey NJTV News, as well as our broadcast. Ed, real quick, as we do this program, in the spring of 2018, the issue of school violence, huge issue.
Huge
issue. The
issue.
president put on the table the whole question of teachers being armed, you say?
Absolutely not. And it's the last thing that our members want, or anyone else in the school community for that matter. I never thought I would say this, but I agree with the president of the National Rifle Association, who said you couldn't possibly train educators enough, nor would they be predisposed in a situation like the Parkland situation to actually fire at a student. It's just the wrong answer. And
What about, sorry for interrupting, what about some of your members who say, you know what, I own a gun legally, of course, and I want to do it? Should it be?
No. I mean, come on. Imagine yourself in that situation, and the real armed professionals do show up and address the situation. Who's the bad guy? How do you figure that out? Because you have multiple people in a school.
The president has oversimplified it?
Very much. Very much. We need sensible gun control, gun legislation. I know the state is looking at that. The federal government is looking at that. Republican congressmen are talking about that. So let's have that conversation. But then let's also look at things that we need to do to better secure our schools, to deal with potential mental health problems, including among our students, and make sure that they have the right resources available to them to help them.
Let's talk economics. Shifting gears, no real good segue. And we just hope and pray that our students and our teachers who help our students every day remain safe. So the biggest change from the last administration, you may have remembered Chris Christie as governor and his relationship with the NJEA.
Hard to forget.
And the relatively new governor, Phil Murphy. Biggest difference is?
Attitude, approach, respect. Governor Murphy has said from the beginning throughout the campaign and the transition, and even just this morning I heard him speak at an event, and he said, we are not always going to agree on everything, but we will always have respectful dialogue. You will always be part of the dialogue. We didn't have that with Governor Christie.
So on the issue of public employee pensions, I don't know if it's the number is $80 billion unfunded liability. I have no idea what it even means. I just know that there's a hole, big hole.
Yeah.
What do you think the appropriate, out of a $35 billion state budget, what do you think the appropriate number is? And again, the budget will be out. We're doing this literally a couple days before, in March of 18. What do you think of that $35 billion the right number is of state dollars to the public employee pension fund?
Don't hold me to it, so I have to really look at where we are. But it's probably in the $3 billion range.
How much would that help, Ed?
It would help a lot, and here's why. For all of his failings, Governor Christie had agreed to a 7-year ramp-up of funding, abandoned that 2 years in.
But he did, in fact.
But he did, in
finish
fact.
The sentence.
Yeah, let me finish the sentence. He did, in fact, try to get back on track with a now new 10-year ramp-up. So we believe that if we continue on that 10-year ramp-up, we're going to get there, and the funds will not default. That the benefits promised to public employees across the state will be secured. And this is extremely important because it's not just about funding the pensions. The state Supreme Court, in numerous challenges regarding the state funding, has said, unfortunately, from our perspective, no, the state can get away with not necessarily meeting its obligation, but they cannot walk away from the promised benefit. So imagine if the funds were to go run dry. The state would be on the hook as a general operating expense for all of those pensions. And we can never get there.
Before we move to state funding in public schools, fully funding public schools, we've had some people on who said, you know what, we need to go back to the bargaining table with public employees and change the health care benefits that they get right now. We just can't afford it anymore. Could at a certain point get any more, you say?
Bargaining is the key, but bargaining got completely upended when the state passed a law in 2011 mandating premium shares on public employees. Yeah, this happened in 2011. All public employees were suddenly required by statute to pay up to 35% of the cost of their health care. And that was completely apart from whatever was negotiated at the collective bargaining table. Now, the law has, quote, sunsetted. It doesn't mean that those premiums go back to where they were before.
Right.
It means that you can now bargain that benefit back. We would argue that some reset is needed in the law because what's happening is year over year, our members, public employees and other employment are taking home less pay year over year over year. We're starting to see that affect our schools.
Could we potentially lose really good teachers?
Absolutely, we already are. It's very typical, obviously, to see people who've worked their entire career, they reach retirement eligibility and start to look at that. People early in their career, there's attrition because they get a few years in, they say, this wasn't really for me. We're starting to see attrition at mid-career that we have never seen before.
Losing good teachers.
That is losing good, experienced educators.
A couple minutes left. Ed, give me another issue I've not raised that really matters, not just to the NJEA, but to all of the citizens of the state when it comes to education.
You mentioned school funding.
Yeah,
and,
the governor wants to fully fund the state formula for public schools.
And he should. I don't know that he's going to get there in year one. But Chris Christie level funded our public schools for 8 years.
What does that mean?
It means that there was no increase, and so any dollar of new cost that a public school had to spend had to come from one of two places: cuts in programs and staff, or property tax increases.
Well, the property tax is already too high.
Yes, and a lot of people forget that the school funding law, when it was adopted, funded by the state income tax, was known as the Property Tax Relief Fund. That is
the irony.
Yeah, but think about that. If we begin fully funding our schools around the state, it takes some of that pressure off. Our property tax is going to go down all over the state. I doubt it. But at least the inertia for them to keep growing will not be there. And we'll be able to sustain our schools, fund our programs, deal with places where enrollment has grown, where they've not gotten another dollar over 8 years. Yeah.
What do you mean, haven't
we have districts all over the state where over the last 8 years, their enrollment has gone up, but their state aid has been flat.
But hold on.
I know, it's crazy.
Well, hold on.
It's crazy.
Isn't the increase in the number of students Don't you say, okay, now they're gonna get more state aid? I'm confused by that.
If we fund the formula and use the formula, yes, that would happen. The way it's happened over the last 8 years, no. If you got $1 million in state aid last year, you got $1 million in
Even
state
if we're
aid
providing more services,
Even if you
requires
had-
more teachers, we have more students.
The only difference accounted for in there was some difference in special ed enrollment, because those are, sort of outlier costs. But no, our school districts around the state are in really rough shape, and we need to fully fund them.
30 seconds left. How confident are you that the Democrats in the legislature who control both houses and the governor will be able to work together in a meaningful way as it relates to solving our educational problems?
I'm actually very confident. I mean, there are 3, as you said, Democratic leaders, the governor, Senate President, the Assembly Speaker. They are all confronted with the same realities. They all very much want to deal with the issues in front of them, and I think they'll work together ultimately.
I say this every time you're on with it. I'll say it again. Say thank you to all of the public school teachers who help and teach and care for our students in the public schools every day. Thank you, Ed.
We appreciate it.
Well
Thanks,
done.
Steve.
That's it for this. See, I'm reading the prompter. That's it for this edition of State of Affairs, and we'll continue the conversation. Follow me at Twitter at Steve Adubato. We'll see you next time from the Agnes Varus studio here at NJTV. Catch you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Varus NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, Guarini Institute, NJM Insurance Group, Fedway Associates, New Jersey Sharing Network, Wells Fargo, NJ Best, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey.
NJM Insurance Company has been serving New Jersey policyholders for more than 100 years. But just who are NJM's policyholders? They're the men and women who teach our children, the public sector employees who maintain our infrastructure, the workers who craft our manufactured goods, and New Jersey's next generation of leaders, the people who make our state a great place to call home. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.